I'm trying to get further.
110-4.
309-10-4.
It wasn't my shift to work. I actually got a phone call on Saturday evening at about 6:30, and they asked if I would like to come in at 3 because a night shift person had called in sick. So I came in at 3.
It was about over halfway done with a shift, and I just taken my lunch break, and it seemed like a routine, ordinary Friday night, Saturday morning, and then it happened.
309. 305 starts that way. 301 or 309.
A routine night that turned out to be anything but routine.
It's a date that I don't typically willingly think about.
I was still on my feet when I heard a pop, and my first thought was, what was that? And then as we went to the ground, I then figured out he was firing a weapon.
All available units start that way. 410 East 12.
10-4.
109, can you advise for 10-2?
A day that left numerous lives shattered, one man dead, and 2 officers inches from death. For Justin King and Brenda Wallin, it had been a normal night on the overnight shift.
It was a home that was a 2-level apartment, downstairs tenant, upstairs tenant.
And the call they received from dispatch.
109, sir, for possible burglary in progress at 410 East 12th Street. Possibly someone who broke into the upstairs, and they're currently in there right now.
Appeared to be nothing out of the ordinary.
The top apartment was supposed to be vacant, and the neighbor downstairs called and said someone had broken into the apartment upstairs and there were multiple people inside.
This is the first and only interview Justin King and Brenda Wallin have given about the night that altered their lives forever. They responded to a call that went from typical to deadly in less than 30 minutes.
Myself and Officer Wallin, we arrived just about at the same time, and we approached the house from the north side. It was dark out, but we could see a light shining outside from the top floor of that apartment.
The officers made their way around to the side of the house and toward the only entrance to the upstairs.
As we were approaching the house, one of us stepped on something, made a sound, and we saw a head peek out of that back door.
The suspects knew they'd been caught.
A female kind of poked her head through the little entryway, and we asked her to open the door, and she was reluctant to do so, so Justin kind of pushed on the door, and it wasn't moving well. There was a refrigerator that someone had pushed up against that door.
She tried going back inside, and that was kind of when we grabbed a hold of her and said, don't go anywhere.
That was the beginning of what would become a violent encounter.
Once we get inside the apartment, we find another female inside. We're trying to get the story from them. It's not really making a whole lot of sense why they were there. They were saying that their friend had lived there, and she didn't live there anymore, but she still had stuff there, and they were there to retrieve some items, some personal items and belongings.
But that story didn't hold up.
The back door, the one that we entered to get inside, it had a broken lock. It had a refrigerator in the way, trying to block access to it. So we knew they weren't there for any legitimate reason.
We asked if they were there alone, and they told us that they were. And talking to them and starting to get their information, we could hear shuffling coming from a back room. And so I kind of stood in the doorway where I had eyes on Justin, but I could still keep an eye on the 2 females.
As the women's story began to unravel,
I had heard something get knocked over in a room somewhere further in the apartment. I looked at one of them and I said, "Who else is in here?" And they both looked down at their feet.
Officer King was forced to make a move that would prove deadly for one of the people in that room.
I pulled him out of the room and I was trying to get the story from him, why he was there, who he was, what was going on. And he was being very evasive to me. He lied to me about his name.